Maybe it was a little bit of a petty thing in a fucked up romantic way, but it felt really good at the time. We were each putting in a lot of effort. Welcome to season 3 of Self-Care-ish, a show about being selfish with care. I'm Megan, and each week we riff on different ways to re-nourish yourself after a divorce, or if you're on a dating or self-dating journey. Either way, I'm so happy we found each other. Let's get into it. When I tell you I have some incredible interviews lined up for this season, I cannot even begin. The Clementine Ford interview from season 2 was unmatched for its honesty and ability to completely shift your thinking in a single ep, but I think the upcoming eps will be pretty close. But for today, it's just you and me because I am recording this in that weird time between Christmas and New Year's, which is okay because when I listen to podcasts, I actually prefer the solo apps when it's just one person talking with you. It just feels more intimate to me and I can really focus on what they're saying. But on today's episode, I do get very real with you and I share, and I hope that my candidness is taken in the spirit in which it is being given. Because I'm talking about something that I think is going to be slightly controversial. It's a topic I'm super passionate about though, and I will talk about it till the cows come home to anyone who will listen to me or sit next to me at a dinner table. But I say it's controversial because whenever me or my ex-husband would mention it to other couples, we would notice a distinct bristling. And what we would put forward or propose to people was always met with weird looks, like we were strange for doing what we were doing. And if during the time that you're listening to this, you find your own emotional fur fluffing up a bit and your back arching cat-like against what I'm proposing, I ask you, just for a moment, to ask yourself why. Because today we're talking about something that has 2 hot button topics in a single headline: parenting and divorce, or parenting like you're divorced. This is what my ex-husband and I would jokingly call this strategy that actually helped our marriage. And I know what you're about to say. Yes, we are broken up. And this is where the plot thickens because the results of living this way can be two-pronged. But let me backtrack first. We called it parenting like you're divorced because we thought we were hilarious and we wanted to have a little sense of humor about our relationship struggles. We also called this strategy parenting like a 1950s husband. And what it is exactly is this. Each week, my husband and I would take turns being the main parent, inverted commas, the main parent of the house. So for 1 week, I would be on full-on duty. Oh my God, it's storming outside. Can you hear that? Anyway, I would be on full duty. I would work full time, plan the meals, clean the house, sort the laundry, and basically handle all the emotional labor of the household alone, while my partner would essentially enjoy a week of being off duty. Yes, he would be present and loving and play with our son, but he would get to waltz in after work and just chill while I just took care of everything. Now, this is the point where I know your haunches are coming up and that little voice is saying, that sounds horrendous and not fair at all. And it would be, except on Sundays at a specific time, we would shift roles, very obviously, for 7 days. And my week off would start and I could relax, knowing the house was taken care of, the meals were organized, the cleaning was done, everything we outlined as household labor was gonna be taken care of. And then I could enjoy finishing work, playing with the kiddo, maybe going to yoga, or maybe just enjoying a book or a show. Zero guilt, no questions asked. The week off was each other's designated time off to just indulge in the things that you love doing when you're not doing the work of living. Now that doesn't sound too bad, does it? And we joked that it was like living as a 1950s husband because that's essentially how men those days got to live. Obviously, times have changed, but some of our marital norms just haven't caught up. But in the first part of that story, you thought that was probably pretty hard on me as a mother, you know, taking care of everything and working full time. And you're right. But it's also what the majority of women deal with week in, week out, with no breaks, no light at the end of the tunnel. Full-time work, full domestic labor, no break in sight. And as you may already know, if you've listened for a while, you know I do try to be super gender egalitarian on this show, but the data here still stacks up. Women still do a lot more of the unseen or unappreciated housework in heterosexual marriages, which is totally fine if you've both clearly established that that's her job and he's keeping up his side of the bargain. But what happens in a lot of marriages is this. We fall in love, both trying to be the best damn versions of ourselves with the best of intentions. We move in together, and we, because we're in love, often fall into romantic stereotypes that society has drilled into us. With women often saying, "Oh, I'll just do it when the laundry needs sorting." And if she does it enough, often enough, over and over, it becomes the norm. Because nobody likes to nag, especially when you're in love. Now, how my ex and I got into this situation was like many couples. We had a young child, we were both working, and we were trying to keep a house, and the resentment and exhaustion from not having a break or light at the end of the workload tunnel was piling up. And human beings, we're not lazy, especially parents. You'll do a lot for the people you love, and if you don't have a goal or a break to look forward to, even the most idyllic Norman Rockwell painted household will begin to look like a prison cell eventually. Which is why I think a lot of marriages are failing. People just aren't being given a goddamn break. And that is why I advocate so strongly for each person in a marriage to allocate at least a weekend off every now and then. It could look like a staycation at a hotel, or it could just be a weekend off doing the housework and letting your partner take things on for a while you fill your cup. And if your partner loves and values you, they will be happy to do it, which they should, because otherwise you would not have married them or moved in with them if they didn't. And these are the results of the little week on, week off parenting like your divorced experiment my ex and I did. Obviously, the big one is we did get divorced. But don't worry, I'll get to that. The irony is not lost on me, do not worry. But while we were married and we were doing this, some incredible things started happening. Number one is it almost gamified the work of running the house. And what I mean by that is we started having fun again because we each had the mental bandwidth on our weeks off. And we would plan little fun meals to cook when it was our time to be on duty. I would get home from work and my ex would have cheese and wine ready for me, and he'd talk me through what he was going to cook. And this would never have happened while we were living together in what society deems normally. We'd also plan date nights because during our week off, we would each get to plan our ideal week if each of us were running the show. Looking back now, maybe it was a little bit of a petty thing in a fucked up romantic way, but it felt really good at the time. We were each putting in a lot of effort. Because point two, both of us now had a truly equal understanding of what kind of effort actually goes into running the house. There was no more, "you don't understand how much I do around here" conversations or any of those kind of arguments, because we both did understand. And that level of understanding and camaraderie created an extra layer of respect for each other, which actually served to reignite the romance again in our home. It was really weird. We were living like we were divorced, but we were more united than ever. And we were so excited by the findings of this experiment, we couldn't believe it. But when we started trying to tell other married couples about it, things got really weird, which leads to one of the most fascinating findings ever. If you've been married, or you are married, you know how it is when a couple you know starts going through struggles. You and your partner might convene in the privacy of your own living room or kitchen over a glass of wine and revel in the idea that, thank God we aren't like them. We're amazing. We're perfect. We've all done it. Trust me, I get it. That's the kind of vibe we would get when my ex and I would share this strategy, which is fair enough. We were not in a good place and we were pretty open about that. But that's exactly why we were so happy, because we'd found something that was making us fall for each other again. But I remember this one particular comment I got from a couple when we were having drinks and we shared our living arrangements with them. And they said, "But that doesn't seem very romantic." And I just have to pause here because it still shocks me. It didn't seem very romantic that we were sharing the load of the housework equally, which is why I referenced the interview I did with Clementine Ford earlier in this app, because it was about her book, I Don't, The Case Against Marriage, where Clementine outlines how the marriage industrial complex has conditioned men and women to believing that giving yourself entirely to the detriment of your health and mental well-being equals romance. It's a very powerful episode. Please listen to it after this one. But I couldn't, and I still can't really get my head around the idea that people would rather live in a state of unease and resentment of being unappreciated because it was tradition or it's romantic. Now, here's the caveat. And I'm aware, of course, that there are brilliant relationships out there, perfect ones. I'm sure they exist, where each person never feels resentful or like they do more or don't get appreciation. I want that for every single person out there and for myself. But the reality is, a lot of people are dealing with this and breaking up over it. All right. So let's address the colossal mammal squatting in the middle of this conversation. My own breakup. Yes, my ex and I officially uncoupled. We divorced. So you're probably sitting there in your car or strolling down the street thinking, well, that must have been a crash and burn situation if they're not hitched anymore. And here's where it gets tricky. And like I said, the whole parenting like a divorce thing is like playing with a double-edged sword. On one side, you parent like you're divorced and you fall in love again because you both start to appreciate each other and the efforts each of you are putting in. But on the other, you learn very, very quickly that you can run the house and the work all by yourself. It's a slog, but then you get your rarefied week off, which looks suspiciously similar to being divorced. And we come full circle, which prompts me, and possibly you too, to think maybe traditional marriage is the culprit here. And maybe my friends who said we weren't being romantic didn't want to try to equal things out in their own household because deep down they knew. They knew that one, maybe he wouldn't go for it, in which case she'd become extra resentful and realize she doesn't want to be with someone who isn't interested in sharing the load equally. And two, maybe they knew it would expedite something that they didn't want to get to expedition, an eventual divorce. So it's better, nay, more romantic or relationship sustaining to maintain the status quo. A status quo that often means one person in the marriage is taking on more, allowing their cup to be drained, and never getting a break off, all at the service of keeping this marriage together. And this is the part where I just feel a sense of confusion and enragement. And I just can't understand why we do this in this day and age. But I want to clarify. None of this means I don't love romance, or I want to be taken care of, or have a desire to be in love, or be chosen by someone I admire and respect. But what I don't like is a belief that any of us who want those things have to get them at the expense of our labor, or our time, or a sense of autonomy. And of course, we all have a duty to care for our loved ones, and we're all willing to make sacrifices for those we love. I'm a parent after all. But a happy human is a free human, not free in the sense that they can easily run into the night and never return when things get hard. I'm talking about the freedom to trust the people in their little village to have their backs when they need to restore themselves and fill their cups. Of course, in today's day and age, a lot of us don't even have the villages to look to for support, or you might be listening to this as a single parent without a partner who's willing to go 50-50 or give you a break. To which I want to invite you, or give permission to you, to imagine what the easiest win in terms of a self-care break might look like for you. Could it be a weekend off every few months? Or could it be a long lunch with a friend every few weeks? Or could it even be as simple as putting on a 90-minute movie for the kiddos and having a bath and listening to a podcast? Whatever is feasible and realistic to you, that is what I want you to do. Because I'm telling you, the divorced parents out here, yes, it can be hellish and stressful. We know divorce is hell. But so can being married. And at least the divorced people get a week or a weekend off, which is more than the married people do. And I want you to stay married, so please invest in your self-care. And if you're listening to this and you're not married or you've just broken up, this is your reminder that there are perks to the situation. Please make sure you enjoy them. All right, I'll leave it there. But I am sure I've opened a can of worms with this episode. So if you want to let me know your thoughts, feel free to slide into my DMs over on TikTok at Megan McTavish. I recently changed my name back to my maiden name, which is Megan McTavish. I'm still getting used to it. But I'm on Instagram still at Megan Lonergan. I still have to prove my ID over there. It's a whole thing. Changing your name is a messy business, people. Do not do it lightly. And you can also subscribe and support Self-Care-ish over at Substack. The links are all in the show notes. And don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Either way, I can't wait to get into this season with you. See you next week.